time since the web was invented and people started doing personal websites, and then people wanted a decent website, we've generally always had to have other people build our sites. And up until 3 years ago, I would have been one of those people. And one of the trends in technology that is happening across the board and is particularly acute with WordPress is that the technology has gotten easier and less technical people can do it, and then people have gotten better and better. So like now I'll take people who are regular people and they know how to use blog software. They know how to upload an image in a blog. So whereas people have gone up, the software has gotten easier and easier, and it's starting to meet in the middle. The only thing with WordPress is that you have to be a little bit of a power user. But one of the things I feel is that even if you listen to this whole thing and you kind of throw up your hands and say, I'm not going to do this, I think what's so important is if you have the vocabulary and you understand a little bit about how WordPress works, when you do work with people, it'll be right-sized. You know, like the story I'll tell is that I saw this organization, and they were in this pickle, and they said, we need to raise $8,000 for the database alone. You know, and I knew what they were working on, and it wasn't that complicated. It wasn't that bad. And I was like, $8,000 for the database alone? I was like, you know, and I wrote to them, and I said, you know, I use stuff like this, and I use MySQL, and MySQL is a database, and it's free. And they're like, oh, no, you don't understand. There's got to be 3 levels of security. And I was like, well, WordPress has administrator privileges, user privileges. I was like, there's all that built in. But I could see that they were just getting fleeced because they didn't know anything about the technology. They didn't know how these things worked. And I've seen that all the time, like with web design. I still see developers who are charging 2005 prices. And I was working with a group, and they said, oh, we need to change the name from Bob to Robert. And I just happened to get... So if you want to switch around a little bit, we can, or we can switch seats with someone if you want to. Or
do you want to switch with me?
No. Because I know you want to... Because you... I didn't mean to point at you, Erica. Hi, come on in. So anyway, so I was working with this group. A web administrator guy switches it from Bob to Robert on a web page, and I saw the emails going back and forth, and the web developer invoiced for like $200. You know, and I was like, because they didn't know that what he did was going to take about a minute. You know what I mean? So this is a way that, because like Paul and I talked a little bit about Elance and what people on Elance do and how to get people on Elance. Part of the reason I have good experiences on Elance is because I know exactly what to ask for. When people write back, I know what the good answers are versus and I know enough to make an educated decision. So one of the things that I always do to explain WordPress is that we always think of WordPress as a blog system, but Chicago Art Magazine is nothing more than WordPress with a template. And this is the equivalent of my little wow demo that I give. So I go to SoloStream, which is a good company where I get a lot of my stuff. And we look at themes. And I'm going to explain what a theme is, because themes are really, really important. It's the reason you go from looking like a blog to looking like this. So now you've all seen Chicago Art Magazine, and now look at this. Oops, hold on, let me go to the demo site. Whenever it says demo site, it means you can see what it looks like. Oh, wait, that looks just like Chicago Art Magazine, doesn't it? So all Chicago Art Magazine is a WordPress blog with a thing called a template. And so I always said, if you think of WordPress as a body, think of a template as a dress that you put on top. And the great thing about templates, you can switch them. Because right now Chicago Art Magazine, this template's feeling a little old. It feels like it doesn't do what I need it to do. And if I want to stick with this company and this brand, I can just upgrade it and use a newer theme. So we're going to talk a little bit about themes and where to get a theme, but they're coming out with themes all the time. So this one they just did a month ago. And so the amazing thing is that whereas people used to have to redo their site and upgrade their site, now there's not. You just put on a new dress. So that's one of the big things, is that you can immediately take something that looks like a blog and you can just in one click make it look like a website. And there are tons of themes. Like one thing I have that we're going to use probably in our thing is this company, Elegant Themes. You spend $35 a year and you get any theme you want. So I just want to do like a quick thing and show you like the huge variety of themes that are out there. So these are, you know, they're tilted to make it look a little different, but these are all different styles. So when people talk about, sometimes people will say, oh, I want to design my own theme. I really ask you to look closely at all the themes and make sure that what you want isn't out there, that it's not even close, that you want to be so off the rails that it's not already existing, because there are a million. Like I was looking at all these blogs and they all looked sort of like blogs. And I was like, well, we want ours to be like a magazine. And so then we started, and this was really the breakthrough that we had 2 years ago that changed everything, because we were going to try to make our own template, and we were going to try to do all this thing, and we're dying. You know, we're taking like online tutorials on PHP, and we're trying to do this. And finally a developer took pity on us, and he said, have you looked at Smashing Magazine? And have you looked at this? And that's when we saw, this isn't quite the breakthrough yet. I'm leading up to that. I think it's called Smashing Magazine. But this is sort of the big daddy of what's going on with templates. And like I said, people are always come out with new templates. And just to explain, so here's 2010 free WordPress themes. Now I generally get professional templates, so I pay about $75. I found that when you spend, now $75 you'll spend once and you're done. With Elegant Themes, you spend $35 and it's all the themes you want for 1 year, and you don't have to do it the next year. You get the themes you want and you could stick with those for 2 years just like we've done. So themes are always coming out. So I want to explain and step back a little bit and explain the anatomy of WordPress and what goes on. So WordPress is the body, and the body is constantly growing up and changing. WordPress, that very basic thing that I'm going to show you how to install, is constantly upgrading, which is a little bit of a tricky thing because some upgrades are better than others, but they're constantly changing their security, they're constantly adding more features, they're constantly making it work better. So when you have WordPress as your body, the body can always be growing up and changing and modernizing. And then you've got your templates. Hi, come on in. We might have to get you a chair. And so the templates are constantly growing and upgrading, and you always can grab a new template. So that's keeping you modern. And then the third part of WordPress, which is really important, we're going to dedicate a huge amount of the class to, is plugins. So I'm going to do the demo with my hands. I was almost going to bring this little special Lego system that our toddler has, but it's like a Lego, but it's got all these little prongs that stick out. And then there's another, and there are all these little blocks. You know what I'm talking about? There's these little blocks, and they have things that stick out. And it's almost like Velcro or little burrs, because they have these things that stick out, and you can snap them together in any configuration. They just stick together. That's really the way to see WordPress, is you've got WordPress, and you can stick on as many plugins as you want. So I had a friend who was doing some e-commerce, and I thought it could go for a little bit of a more modern look. So then you just start snapping things on. So this is, I'm still in the overview mode. E-commerce, ERC, and then here's the magic word, WordPress plugins. And people are always making plugins. People just make millions of plugins out of the goodness of their heart. The best way to find them is Googling around. Finding good plugins is an art. And I go on these like user groups and stuff, and people are always like, I found this awesome plugin. And then somebody's like, I spent 5 hours looking for a plugin and I'm not happy. And then somebody's like, well, I spent 10 hours looking for a plugin and I found this one. And they're all exchanging these plugins. But what you can start to see is new functionality comes out. Here, I'm sorry, I'm going to